Hello, my name is Joe Petty. This is a project I've been working on called Reclaiming Professional Authority, How Disabled Educational Leaders Disrupt Comfort Culture. Uh, the use of the word disabled in this presentation here is one defined by the social construction of disability and in no way should be meant as a pejorative context for individuals who have neurodiversity or difficulty access in certain spaces. Disability is a social construct, and we are disabled by it. We are not in a deficit. We are whole, complete human beings as we are. And so know that as I use the word, I use it with pride as a person that identifies with disabilities and as a neurodiverse individual, which kind of brings me to the next point. I'm a neurodivergent educational administrator with lived understanding of educational exclusion and institutional hierarchies. I struggled greatly in my K-12 experience. I didn't finish high school. I've struggled through most jobs in a variety of contexts and through my academic career in both undergrad, grad school, and in a PhD program. Um, I love what I do. I love who I am, and I love the different ways that I get to think and respond and act in the contexts that I do. It does occasionally bring up some challenging difficulties, and those difficulties also give me insight and perspective and what it means to live as a neurodivergent person and to critically analyze the work that I do as an administrator, as a special education teacher, and as somebody that works in K-12 schools. The purpose of this project was to really it came out of the work I do as a special education administrator, wanting to systematically tear down the institutional structures we have that create uh, inequitable systems for students with disabilities, um, the ways in which ableism shows up in the work that we do as teachers, to turn around and look at how we support teachers, how we support new teachers, and how we create uh, administrators, and how those works perpetuate our status quo and the ableism inherent in the system. Um, at the end of it, my hope is that those of us working in this would find a path forward in reclaiming our authority, specifically those of us that identify as neurodivergent or as living with a disability, as a way of for us to kind of stake our claim to proudly and boldly, own who we are in our contexts, and publicly own who we are so that we can begin to do the work. As the saying goes, nothing about us without us. And my hope is that and for myself, really, and as well as my others, is that we can own uh, our roles and then be proud about who we are as neurodivergent or disabled people in those roles, so that we can speak on behalf of our own community and advocate. The theoretical foundation for the study was grounded in disability studies and education, and then links to implementation science principles stemming from medical research. The methodology of the study was a comparative case study of two charter schools situated in very different socioeconomic contexts. Over a period of 18 months, there are eight deep and extensive teacher interviews, as well as there was some classroom observations and some note taking on my behalf through conversations with school site leaders, as well as observing professional developments and participating in these school sites as a educator and as an administrator. The key finding coming out of it was that comfort culture operates as a primary mechanism through which institutions undermine professional advocacy for marginalized students. In short, there is a tendency to prioritize comfort. Uh, this is a kind of a very natural human thing to do, to want to be comfortable in our own world and in our own way. And what started to come out in over the course of the study is that there is a prioritization of comfort, starting at the top with administrators prioritizing their own comfort, prioritizing the comfort of their staff, educators prioritizing their own comfort in the moment when there is a need to actively seek out the discomfort in the roles in order to challenge ableist aspects of the system and the work we do, which becomes important to define our terminology. Um, we need to separate what is comfort from the idea of safety. Educators require safety and rest for sustained engagement, but comfort seeking behaviors prioritize institutional familiarity over student liberation. The idea here is that the status quo will be maintained in comfort. That's what comfort comes from, is the maintenance of this status quo. And we know that our systems are not perfect. We know that our educational system does not function at the capacity that it needs to. And the first and most meaningful step we can do is to acknowledge the ways in which we need to be uncomfortable with that. In that the changes we need to make are going to create discomfort. I should clarify that. Here's an analogy I've been using recently to talk about what discomfort is versus safety. We deserve to be safe, and you should be safe. You should be safe in your job. Be safe. Discomfort is something that we actively seek for the benefit of ourselves. When we go to a gym or you go for a run or a bike ride or for a walk, you are seeking a certain amount of discomfort. When you go to a gym, you sit down on some equipment or go to lift weights, you are seeking discomfort for the benefit of your cardiovascular health, your respiratory health, to build muscle and strength. When you work with a trainer, that person's job is to actively and strategically create discomfort for you uh, to the benefit of your health. Administrative leaders in a school site setting should be doing this as well, actively seeking ways to create discomfort for themselves and for their staff in order to challenge and question our practices, our policies, and look for those ways in which ableism and exclusionary practices have continued to manifest or been sustained in the work that we do. Teachers should be actively seeking the discomfort of trying new techniques and challenging what they do in the classroom, their procedures, the way that they show up, treat others, act, the limitations of their pedagogy and instructional practices as well. We we have a tendency towards our own comfort. And yes, we do need safety and rest, but we do need to actively be seeking the discomfort so we can stretch and grow, so we can improve our educational outcomes and the work that we do. So coming out of this, I developed the implementation science inclusion fidelity framework, which is 6 components that do need to happen at the same time. I use that word simultaneous to indicate that all 6 of these things need to happen at the same time and lift the system together. So number one, uh, systematic resource redistribution. Educational institutions have got to redirect financial investment from accommodation maintenance towards environmental transformation through equity analysis. There is a whole industry built around accommodations and tools and almost, I mean, there's an industry within special education itself. Uh, when really, if we pivot and look towards universal design, UDL principles, creating educational systems, structures, practices, curriculum that is built from the beginning to be universally accessible to all students, regardless of what their particular skill set or limitations might be. Uh, Collaborative leadership structures need to include individuals that identify as disabled or neurodivergent in positions of actual authority, not just in advisory roles or in roles where they cannot make uh, informed decisions and contribute in that way. There needs to be more more individuals in leadership roles at school sites, specifically in district roles, in decision-making roles that identify as openly and publicly identify as neurodivergent or disabled. Early on, years before I was, you know, proud enough to own who I am in PD, to name my own neurodiversity, and to be, public facing about it as an advocate. I knew I had formal diagnosis. I was aware of who I was, but wasn't, or I feared the retaliatory practices of, uh, you know, policies of leadership, of HR, prioritizing normative culture over, being accepting and inclusionary of an individual like myself. Now I think I know better, and in order to be a real advocate, I need to be comfortable publicly owning who I am and stating who I am. So in my role as a site leader, as a school site leader, I can uh, you know, advocate for students with disabilities, students with neurodiversity in a much more effective way. We need to create ongoing capacity building. Oftentimes, professional development is one and done at the start of a school year for teachers, for administrators as well. We have professional development, and then it's just never referenced again, or there's no follow through. There's no next steps really coming out of that. Professional development is something that happens shoulder to shoulder. Between peers, between administrative leaderships and the teachers that they coach. Real professional development is not a session that happens at the beginning of the year or on a PD day. Professional development is the identified growth and shoulder to shoulder work that individuals do together in order to improve their systems, structures, outcomes, and strategies that they use. That professional development session should either be an introduction or a closeout where we're coming together to reflect on things, but the actual development needs to be happening either in classrooms or in workspaces with individuals who are actively expanding their own capacity and developing skills. We need to have environmental transformation. We need to be critical of the systems and structures around us. We need to examine and modify those factors to create inclusion rather than focusing on just uh, creating intervention for students. It's, building, metaphorically speaking, it's building structures with ramp access, not just stairs, and it's doing it from the get-go. We're not necessarily creating lessons and then turning around to figure out how to make it more accessible. We're building with accessibility in mind from the very beginning, and all of our systems need to be disassembled and rebuilt with that in mind. Complete accessibility, universally designed so that all individuals can participate, regardless of how they're showing up to that space. Power redistribution, redistributing decision-making power and authority to ensure disabled students, families, and educators control policies affecting their experience. Oftentimes, policies are made in an ivory tower. They're interpreted in an ivory tower at the very least, even if it is something like IDEA or law. As those things start to move through the layers of bureaucracy and decision-making power. Many people have a role in that, but by the time it gets to the people it affects, to the students and the parents, and even to a certain extent the classroom teachers, who are kind of the one of the last steps there, we're not seeing the key stakeholders having decision-making power early enough in that process in order to make sure that their access and their role in this is, being adequately addressed in that process. And finally, a transformation accountability. There needs to be established accountability systems at every step of this. We should see transformation happening in measurable ways, in observable ways, in order to create authentic inclusion. And I use that word. The idea of authentic inclusion needs to be clearly defined as well. But as we're looking at how our systems are being transformed by the work that we're doing through this structure, we need to be able to point directly at what those transformations are, to observe them, to measure them, to be able to share in that observation together, so that we can create real transformational change in our systems. By doing this, by taking a look at the comfort culture at our schools, and in our systems, by being critical of them, by being strategic about how to create discomfort for ourselves and for each other, we'll start to be able to make really meaningful change to our systems. By centering disabled voices and the voices of the neurodivergent, we'll be able to have greater insight into how that transformation is affecting the communities in question. By redistributing our institutional power, we'll ensure that their voices are being amplified and heard, and then we'll be able to have professional authority, and professional voices of those of us that identify as disabled or neurodivergent in those spaces in a more meaningful way. So my hope is that you will create good trouble, be a pain in the ass strategically, uh, and that in doing so, by being loud and noisy in good moments, we'll be able to transform our educational system and our environments in really meaningful ways for students and for teachers alike that do this work. Um, my hope is that we will stay hungry for real transformational change in our education systems, in our teacher preparation systems, and in our administrative preparation systems, which hoping is my next work. There's some of my references. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. And I'm so sorry I couldn't be there in person. If you'd like to reach out to me, I'm very easy to get a hold of. Happy to have some dialogue. Have a great day. And again, thank you so much for watching this.